Now, more than ever, this kind of information is being suppressed. The mainstream media, most of the conventional medical universities and establishments, the hospitals that are in charge of taking care of people who are concerned about cancer or all kinds of diseases, all of it is just focused in the pharmaceutical industry's direction.
Hello, this is Dr. Kevin Connors. Welcome to another episode of Connors Clinic Live. Today we have a special guest. We're going to talk with Jonathan Landsman. He is the founder of Natural Health 365, a great website with fantastic resources on just about everything you can think of in to dealing with your health, especially things that are current events, different news things that are going on, everything that's been going on with this quote unquote pandemic. He's been bringing to light the truth. And if you aren't seeking the truth in today's day and age, you are being led down a pathway that is horrifyingly dangerous in my mind. We are seeing just cancer rates go crazy in our practice. I think everybody's practice is. I think the data is showing that. Other disease processes going crazy, autoimmune issues going crazy. Jonathan, let's just jump right into this. That's kind of your specialty. You're kind of looking at what's trending now and, how to have a clear mind in assessing it and giving that data to people that are looking for real truth.
Well, Dr. Connors, I don't mind telling you, it's with a sadness in my heart that I bring up these topics at all. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sure a lot of people listening to your podcast, they understand that right now, more than ever, this kind of information is being suppressed. The mainstream media, most of the conventional medical universities and establishments, the hospitals that are in charge of taking care of people who are concerned about cancer or all kinds of diseases, all of it is focused in only one direction. And I think if anybody just looks at this with a reasonable mind, they can see that all of it is just focused in the pharmaceutical industry's direction. Everything these days is about a pill for every ill. And so, yes, for over 35 years, I've been pointing out, look, maybe we ought to pay attention to health and physical fitness on a individual level. And maybe you should put down the magazine and the radio and local TV stations that are only sponsored by pharmaceutical drug ads. And maybe you ought to just look at some common sense, which is just grounded in the science. And so, yes, the long story short of it all, Dr. Connors, is I decided to create the Stop Cancer Docu-Class, which is available. People can check out all the information that they need to know about how to avoid and, most importantly, how to reverse a cancer diagnosis that they may have, how to deal with this, because certainly nobody is hearing about the importance of the immune system, the importance about what we can do to improve cellular health. I mean, the list goes on and on. The importance of staying away from infections, how we can reduce our risk, and, dare I say, not even feel the need to be dependent on some sort of injection from the pharmaceutical industry to somehow keep me safe from harm. And I don't want anybody listening to this to get this wrong. I am all for Western medicine. For crisis intervention, they're amazing. God forbid somebody's in some sort of accident that is life-threatening, car, whatever might happen around their home, an accident, and they need to get their bones fixed or stitched up or emergency surgery. Technology today, the skill of these surgeons is second to none, especially here in the United States. We are spoiled when it comes to that. But in terms of preventing cancer or dealing with a cancer diagnosis or heart disease or any other kind of, you mentioned autoimmune conditions, Again, their only answer, conventionally speaking, Western medicine, is let's try to inject something into you. Let's have you swallow a pill. All of this toxic, none of it really spoken about that much at all in terms of how toxic it is for somebody and the potential side effects. And nothing is ever said to them about how they can improve their quality of their bloodstream, improve the quality of their digestive system. And so you're right, all of these things I've been focused on for over 35 years, but cancer is really on my mind these days because for the 20 experts that I had fly in from all over the world, Thailand, Arizona, Mexico, California, Tennessee, Texas, you name it, all over the place. They came into my Florida studios. We did filming, 20 of these experts, nearly 50 presentations that we created, all focused on cancer. And every single one of them has said to me, Jonathan, cancer rates are exploding. We're seeing people they had a cancer diagnosis, they were fine. Now all of a sudden it's back and it's raging more aggressively. We're seeing people with strange cancers. And so we're seeing, and the spread of cancer. And so they were all very alarmed. And so I was just, again, like I said to you, sad to do this, but it is so important these days that we take our health so much more seriously. We reduce the toxicity. We do everything we can to support a strong, healthy immune system. It is our only chance to live the kind of life, I'm sure, Dr. Connors, that everybody listening to this podcast, they want a long, healthy, productive life. And in my mind, the only way to do that is to support a strong immune system and to make every cell of our body stay as healthy as possible. And certainly those three-letter agencies out there, FDA, CDC, World Health Organization, WHO, none of these agencies are educating people out there at all about what they can do to improve cellular health and to keep the immune system running strong. It's just this mindless, constant propaganda of the only way you can feel better is to go speak to your conventionally trained doctor who will give you one opinion only. And that is to direct you in the right direction, as they say, the pharmaceutical industry, for a pill, some sort of drug, or risky surgical procedures or toxic medical procedures to quote unquote fix your problem. And certainly when it comes to cancer, Dr. Connors, that has failed miserably for well over 50 years at this point.
Well, I would agree with you. Now, I want to go back to the Stop Cancer docuseries. You interviewed these fantastic, natural-minded physicians that have been helping people for decades and decades. Was there one? Could you give me one or two underlining things of why they think this spike just since this quote unquote vaccine has been out? Is that a tie in their mind to the spike of cancer or the aggressiveness of a person's cancer? Maybe it was in a kind of a semi-remission mode, and then it just took off. Give us some insight on that.
It is. I mean, after spending over 9 months creating this program, with the long amount of time it took to have everybody come in and the planning that it took, it is very clear that this is the single biggest threat to people when we see in terms of people concerned about cancer. The spike proteins, whether it's coming from an infection or you actually get it shot into you in an injection for supposedly some way of protecting you, some sort of solution to all of this, which it isn't. Anybody who's listening to this now, I strongly encourage them to look up what is happening with these spike proteins. The conventional narrative is, don't worry about anything. If you get injected with these spike proteins, they don't travel to the body, throughout the body. It's just sort of at the injection site, and that's about it. And they certainly don't get within the nucleus of the cell. Don't worry about it at all. And nothing could be further from the truth. The studies have been put out since at least a year now at this point. Many studies clearly illustrate that the spike proteins are attacking the cells themselves. There is another issue in terms of laying the groundwork for why it's so problematic and why cancer rates are shooting up so much, is because, to be quite blunt, people have been complacent with the kind of things that they've been doing with themselves, lifestyle-wise, in terms of toxicity. The pesticides, the herbicides that they're consuming, glyphosate. Dr. Judy Mikovits was one who just recently came out and talked about how glyphosate coupled with these shots is particularly dangerous. Now, if anybody listening to this, well, glyphosate, what's the big deal? It is scattered, saturating all the wheat products that people are consuming. Go into any local supermarket and glyphosate is everywhere. The bread, the bagels, the cookies, the crackers, the chips, every wheat product out there has glyphosate saturated in it. And it's, for those who may not know, which I doubt are anyone in your audience, but it's an herbicide that's being sprayed on, especially at the end of raising these wheat crops. All these farmlands are being sprayed with glyphosate. So that's just one example of a highly toxic substance. And again, the mainstream narrative about that was, oh, don't worry about it at all. Glyphosate will just somehow magically evaporate and not really end up in your food supply. It's absurd. Almost all of us have that to a degree in our bloodstream, but it's all the pesticides in the food. If we are lax and we just say, well, it's not organic, but what's the big deal with the food that I'm eating? Most of our food should be as local as possible, organic food, to stay away from the chemicals. In our water supply, Dr. Connors, the same thing. If we go to restaurants and we're not super careful, that's 99+% of the restaurants. They're not really being very mindful of the water that they're using into all the soups, into washing all their food, putting it literally into the rice dishes or anything they might be making with their food. The water is extremely toxic. The water that we use at home, if it's not purified, reverse osmosis, distilled water, if we're not using really pure, tested spring water where we know for a fact that it's really a clean, actual good source of spring water. If we're dehydrated, that's bad. But if we're trying to hydrate ourselves with this very toxic water, with chlorines in it and fluoride and all the pharmaceutical drugs that they don't even test in the water supply, the list is going on and on, as you can see, about the toxins that we're exposed to, the chemtrails, the spraying in our sky, and all those chemicals that are coming down. And of course, infections that are in our mouth. We need to see a good biological dentist, or hidden infections or unaddressed infections, Epstein-Barr, Lyme disease, you name it, any kind of, all the whole list of infections that are in our body that we may not be effectively dealing with. When all of that is existing in millions and millions of people, and then we play this game of Russian roulette, where we say, well, these spike proteins, it's not that good, but I'll just take the shot, which has spike proteins I'm going to inject into my body. This is massively increasing our risk of cancer, because you've got a weakening of cell function. And then when you take the bigger picture, you take a wider view, immune system function is being severely compromised at the same time. So our cells are not able to repair themselves because the spike proteins are getting into our cells. And if for those people who are just sort of lackadaisical about taking these shots and all the boosters, they're injecting more and more of these spike proteins into their body versus just maybe naturally getting infected once and you're immune for a very long time. You're injecting these spike proteins into your body over and over again, massively polluting your cells, inhibiting your cells' ability to repair themselves. Hello, that's going to greatly increase your risk of cancer. And then on top of that, you're severely compromising our ability for our immune system to defend ourselves from foreign invaders. And all of the things that I've said are well documented by many physicians. And so that's the long answer, Dr. Connors, as to why all of the experts that came in and spoke deeply about these topics, all the infections we're exposed to, all the toxins we need to reduce, and most importantly, the things that we need to build up in our body, the nutrients that will protect us from all this potential toxicity. All of them said pretty much the same thing as to why they feel like cancer rates are shooting up. And quite honestly, we haven't seen anything yet, especially as people are going out now and getting more and more boosters, and they're not hearing this kind of information. So I say it often, Dr. Connors, I hope people take this kind of conversation that we're having here and they just simply share it with somebody else. And hopefully the message they get from this is, wow, wait a minute, maybe there is something else I need to look into. And I would really strongly encourage everybody to look into this themselves. The difficulty is the search engines don't always give this kind of information to people, especially if they've been used to for months, if not years, on their own mobile devices and their machines, going to conventional sites, the CDC, NIH, FDA, conventional sites like even like Healthline, different websites that they may go to that give them sort of white bread answers, nothing really to go on at all. Now, when they go seek real information, it's part of the search engine game. They're never going to see the kind of information that we're discussing here. So I would just encourage people to take this seriously and to look into it much more deeply, and to certainly look for a qualified integrative healthcare provider who really appreciates the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. I hope it resonates with a lot of people, Dr. Connors.
Well, I do too, and I do want to add too that you had multiple doctors in your docu-series. You, on your Natural Health 365, interview hundreds of different practitioners, and I want to add to the listeners that they might not get one little piece. Practitioners like myself and these hundreds that you have interviewed, there is no bias to say these things. We have no financial bias. Matter of fact, it's everything against us. The things that I post on my website, the things that you have on Natural Health 365, you get attacked for. We're dealing with a state board trying to come after us to try to shut us down constantly. And it's this is a fight that we have to put up with. And all these doctors that you interviewed, to be able to come out in public and make these statements takes courage. And for you to put up this website and to be running this website takes courage. You come up against, Google search engine optimistics that are trying to shut you down and to hide your site from search sources. You have a wealth of information, and it's like if you, as in the general public, continue to just to stick your head in the hole and not seek these things out from courageous people that are posting the truth, part of me goes, well, too bad for you. You're going to suffer the consequences. Now, the Christian part of me wants to go, well, that's not the right attitude to have. I need to keep speaking the truth. I need to keep sharing the truth, no matter what. I want to go back to your docuseries because I want to push that a little bit, because I think there's such value in hearing. We're a natural health clinic. We see mainly cancer patients, but I want to push other practitioners too. And the knowledge is out there. Don't just get knowledge from me. Don't just get knowledge from Jonathan here. You pull in as many wise individuals as possible to share the truth that they're seeing in their practices and what can change. I just applaud you for that and your website. I want to really push people to your website because it's just a wealth of information.
Well, thank you, Dr. Connors. You're right. We've been attacked for many, many years. So we're used to it. You got to play the game. You got to do the best you can to get this information out. People have to sign up, raise their hand that they're interested in this kind of information so that they get on newsletter lists and they can explore for themselves. But it's so true what you're saying. If someone out there is saying, well, you just seem to be a little too slanted the other way, I want to make the message really clear. And I appreciate everything you said, Dr. Connors. It's very true, in fact, what you said. That if you have a doubt about anything that you've heard here about how you ought to look at infections in your mouth, gum disease, root canal treated teeth, let me just tell you a story about that alone. 2 days ago, somebody who I've known for many years, lost touch with them, but they know that I'm out there in the natural health world, stumbled, and I use the word intentionally, stumbled across my Stop Cancer Docu-Class. Says, wow, I see you doing this thing. I'm very interested. I've just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Wow. So a blast from the past. We get in touch with each other and we're talking. And here's his route. 6 rounds of chemotherapy. He literally says he would die for his doctor, meaning, that he really loves his conventional doctor at this hospital that he went to and was taken care of, quote unquote, very quickly, and all these things. He really just doesn't know. You say, as with your Christian heart and mind, you're listening or feeling like you ought to sound differently. I certainly, with my Jewish mind and heart, I was just listening to him, right? I understood with compassion. I have to understand he just doesn't know. So I'm listening to him tell his story. And the first thing I said to him, you say you want to encourage a lot of practitioners, Dr. Connors, to listen up. Well, here's a big one. The first thing I said to him was, what's going on in your mouth? Do you have any root canal treated teeth? Again, he's talking about cancer. He's been diagnosed with a serious form of pancreatic cancer where they have told him, many of the physicians that he's seen, get your affairs in order. There is not much else we can do. So this is pretty serious stuff. My only first question to him was, have you had any root canal treated teeth? He says, I'm getting chills. Out of nowhere, he says, I can't tell you how many root canal treated teeth I have. So that was his answer. And then he goes on to say that years ago, Jonathan, I had a feeling about this. I sort of was thinking about this, but then I just kind of didn't do anything about it. I've had heart trouble for many years. Stents were put into me. And now, fast forward years later, he's diagnosed with cancer. I tell you this story, Dr. Connors, because you wouldn't believe how many people over the years I've heard basically the same thing, almost identical. Heart problems of one kind or another, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, taking pills now. They've got these problems in their mouth, gum disease that is not being taken care of by their dentist, root canal treated teeth, they're being done to people. Oh, they have a pain in their tooth, cavity gets filled. Oh, it doesn't work. Next step, let's treat it with a root canal procedure. Let's dig it all out and we'll save your tooth. And then the years go on and that dead tooth gets fully infected. And over again, people have told me the same thing. And over again, Dr. Connors, none of them had an idea really. They say they might have thought about it, but they didn't really know, or else they wouldn't have done it. And I tell them one other thing. Keep in mind, the top cancer clinics in the world, Switzerland, all throughout the world, the first thing they'll do with any cancer diagnosis is they'll take in that person, of course, a whole health history, all of those things, blood testing, they'll do all these things. They clean up areas of the mouth. Any problems, mercury-based silver fillings, gum disease, root canal treated teeth, cavitations, not cavities, cavitations from, in a lot of cases, teeth that are extracted even if they're extracted properly, which is a whole other story, many of them, especially wisdom teeth, are not extracted properly. The ligament is left in there. And then what happens is a cavitation of bone infection happens. All of this stuff puts a constant stress on the immune system. And stress, let's be very clear, a distraction of the immune system to be so focused on this constant threat of any kind of infection that how on earth is it supposed to focus on the thing that all of us would want most of all? For our immune system to identify a cancer cell, grab hold of it, get rid of it out of the body as quickly as possible. The more chronically inflamed we are from poor lifestyle choices, these infections we're talking about, as this goes on and on and on, and our immune system gets more and more compromised, then we hear the story, I don't get it. I was fine for all these years. And now all of a sudden, I got diagnosed with cancer. 1 billion plus cells diagnosed somewhere because of a test. Well, they finally found it. But if you backward engineer, so many of these things are in place, laying the groundwork for cancer cells to grow rapidly out of control. And that's what the message is for the Stop Cancer Docu-Class, is to do all the things we can to stop that from happening. Even if you've been diagnosed, the solution is in helping the immune system to function well, to reduce all this toxicity in the body, and lay the groundwork for us to have a very healthy life all the years that we're alive.
Now, you mentioned solutions, and I think when we have conversations like this, sometimes it's easy for a layperson to feel like, oh my gosh, it's just depressed. Where do I start? Oh my goodness, there's no hope. There's hope in watching and registering for things like your docu-series on cancer. There's hope for getting to good websites like your Natural Health 365, getting on your newsletter list. Start slow, plowing through articles and start educating yourself, start, being exposed to the truth. And like you mentioned early on in this conversation, stop spending time, wasting time, being brainwashed in the propaganda that the pharmaceutical company is, throwing up at you constantly. So it takes, there's some people are starting from, that might be listening to this, that they know all this. Oh, I already know that about teeth. I already know about that. And they need just to go a little bit deeper. And some people, have been eating, McDonald's every day. So the important piece, I think, in this is to just change some habits in things that where you're getting your information from. Start learning good things. Give us the how a person can register for the Stop Cancer series, and then a little bit more about your website.
I would imagine you're going to have a link available for people. Yep. Okay, so just click that link. It's first name and email address. It's completely free. It's over 8 days. Each day you'll be emailed exactly what is available for that day, the speakers, what they're going to be speaking about. It's interesting what you said. I mean, it's over 8 days. Like I said, it's 20 of the speakers. It's nearly 50 presentations in total that are involved in the Stop Cancer Docu-Class. But to just get signed up and to get this information, because I like what you said. On the surface, it seems like for a lot of people, not really an answer. But it is actually what most of these integrative healthcare providers said to me. It does get grounded first in good education, a recognition of what have I done that has caused my situation, a self-responsibility. And pardon the pun, it may be a hard pill to swallow, but this really is what it's all about. God forbid anything happens to me, Dr. Connors, in my life. And my wife is my witness to this, how true it is. And she's largely responsible for that as well. If something were to ever happen to me, she's quickly going to some of the best natural things we can do. What vitamins, what minerals can we amp up? Nebulizing, detoxing, more water than we normally do. You name it. All the natural things we could possibly throw at trying to fix a problem, because we have the knowledge, the knowing that, hey, we did this before. We were feeling run down. We felt aches and pains. What made us feel better? You should exercise. Oh, yeah, I know I should exercise. But if you don't exercise, you don't know that feeling. And don't get me wrong, Dr. Connors, exercising for most people out there will never be something you want to do. It's never going to feel easy and comfortable. I'm down here in Florida, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, exercise down here in the middle of the day, which we purposely do for the heat and the sweating, is never easy. But every time we're done, we feel great. So it's a knowing through experience. And the only way to first start for so many people out there is to learn about these things. And I can't stress this enough. The first thing, so that you're not stressed out, the first thing when you watch the Stop Cancer Docu-Class that I created, the very first thing as you watch each day that resonates with you, wow, that's it. I got to do this more. And you'll definitely hear why. Inspirational presentations. I mean, these speakers are second to none. In my 35 plus years, it took a lot to get them to get to my studio. It takes a lot of screening. I have to know where these people are coming from to let them in. These are great presenters that are clear, easy to understand information. When something they say inspires you, I suggest you start with just that one thing. That's what this is all about. And that one big thing, if it was something about root canal treated teeth, especially when it comes to that guy I told you about before that I spoke to, I have no doubt that if he does that one move, going to a good biological dentist and addressing that problem, he will massively improve his health and greatly reduce his risk of that cancer spreading throughout his body. And I don't know, I can't think of anything else that would be more important than that.
Yeah, I always tell people that you're really one decision away from a major life change. Well, Jonathan, I just really thank you for being on today. I think this has been a blessing to a lot of people. It will be a blessing to a lot of people in the future as well. Just thank you for your website. We'll have links to that as well. There's just a wealth of information that people can gain knowledge about all sorts of current events, videos, everything on there as well. Well, thanks again for everybody for being on Connors Clinic Live. I hope this was as good for you as it was for me talking to Jonathan. He is just a fantastic inspiration. Thanks again. Bye-bye.